Thanks for joining this presentation. Today, we're going to be talking about how you juggle not just your life, but your schoolwork, your work, your family, your social situations, your friendships, your relationships, everything. We're going to talk about it all today because when we're asked to balance our life, we have to do one thing that we really do struggle with a whole lot. And I want you to think about that one thing. I want you to think about that one thing that you struggle with. I want you to think about that one thing where you're like, you know what, Lavelle, I just can't prioritize it. You know what, Lavelle, I just can't make it to class on time. You know what, Lavelle, I just can't make it to work on time. I want you to think about that one thing in your life that you struggle with, that gives you trouble over and over again. Life pulls us in a bunch of different directions. But today, we're going to learn some different tips, some different techniques that are going to help you be able to get control over your life, right? How many people have struggled with motivation, right? Drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat. Let me know. Have you ever struggled with motivation? Have you ever struggled to maintain a clear mind? Have you ever struggled to just remain focused, right? Because sometimes life pulls us again in so many different directions. And it doesn't help that sometimes we're on our phone scrolling all the time and things like that. Show of hands for those that are on camera right now. And shout out to y'all. Shout out to you if you're on camera right now. Let me know by a show of hands. Have you ever felt overwhelmed? Walk me through because I know I have. I know there's been times. Drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat. There are times in your life where you are going to be extremely overwhelmed. Sometimes those times are right now. Right? We're getting ready for finals in a couple weeks. Think about when you had the most struggle balance in your life. Think about the parts of your life that give you the most difficulty. And I want you to take 10 seconds to think through what you think the solution is to the problems in your life. I want you to think about it for 10 seconds, what the solution may be to the problems in your life. And if anything, drop it in the chat. Because one of the things we find out as time progresses is we all go through this thing called life together. Drop it in the chat. Take 10 seconds. Think it through. All right? It could be, look, I need a car. Or look, I need money for transportation. Or look, I need diapers. My kid needs formula. I'm going through it. Right? It could be a number of different things. It also doesn't help when you're trying to balance life. I mean, how many of us have family things going on? That makes the balancing act really tough. But, a lot of times I'll meet with students and students will say, look, the motivation, it just isn't there. Right? I'm not motivated. How often do you not feel motivated? How often are you just like, look, I'm not in the mood? Right? Is it 10% of the time, 20% of the time, 50% of the time, 70% of the time? How often are you not motivated? Drop it in the chat. So I want you to think about when you have to study for school. I want you to think about, when you try to go home, you sit on the bed, you lay on the bed, you sit on the couch, you lay on the couch, and you try to study. How difficult is it to be able to study at home? Sometimes the motivation gets zapped. Just like that. So motivation isn't always reliable, but there is one thing that is reliable, and the reliability is consistent over and over and over again. And that's a system, right? Let's talk about a system that you can use, that you can implement, that you could deploy, that's going to help you balance all of these different things in your life that you have to balance. And it's going to center on these 5 things. Because, one of the things that makes Apple products good, one of the things that makes, the iPhone, the iPad, the MacBook, all that, what makes it good is it has a good operating system. Humans, we ourselves, we function the exact same way. We need a good operating system. There's going to be 5 pillars we're going to talk about. The first one is going to be time. I want you to think about how time gets in your way. The second pillar is going to be energy, right? Sometimes our energy levels are different depending on who we're around. So I want you to think about when you feel most energized. That's a big part of the pillar. Because our energy level, that helps with our clarity. That helps with our focus. What do we value? What's important to us? What do we care about? Because look, if I don't care about it, if I'm not going to prioritize it, If I'm not going to put it in my calendar, it's probably not going to be able to get done. How many of you procrastinate? Drop it in the chat. Let me know. How many of you procrastinate? And why? What causes the procrastination? For some of us, it's, look, I started at the last minute. You have the ability to be able to schedule everything in your calendar, right on your phone. How many of you scheduled this? Drop it in the chat. How many of you scheduled this presentation into your phone? How your environment sometimes can play a part in you being able to balance your life. I want you to think about how many of you have trouble studying at home? How many of you actually study at home? Drop it in the chat. Let me know. How many of you study at home? Most of us do, right? But you know the problem with studying at home is we associate home with chilling. We associate home with kicking back. We associate home with relaxing. We don't associate home with doing schoolwork. We don't associate home with writing English papers. We don't associate home with, our math homework, FNMT, 118. We don't associate home with anatomy and physiology, bio 109. We don't associate home with that. But we do associate the library with that. So if you're looking to balance everything from a time perspective, one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give you is go to the library. Study there. Do your schoolwork there. Write out your study guides there. Do everything there. Because one of the best things about studying in a library is when you're in a library and you're studying, you're like, look, I need to focus because I'm trying to get back and go home. And if you know that you have a 10-page paper coming up, if you know you have a bunch of CIS 103 homework coming up and things like that, don't wait to the last minute. Because it's going to be really, 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 really tough when that pressure starts to hit, right? I want you to think about when you have that assignment due at 12 o'clock tonight, and then that pressure begins to hit you because you've just started to study for it or do it at 10 p.m., right? That pressure comes quick. Next thing you know, you say, look, I got writer's block. I can't think. I can't focus. Start in advance. I used to joke all the time, and I would say, look, the hardest part of studying isn't actually studying. The hardest part of studying is actually making a decision to open the textbook, turn the page, get a pen, start writing, right? That's the hardest part. That's the friction. I'll give you one better. Sometimes the friction is actually just sitting down. In a perfect world, you would do this, and this will help you. At the beginning of the semester, take out your syllabuses for all your classes. Write down all the due dates into a planner. All right? When you write all of the due dates into a planner, every Sunday, open that planner up and then look at what assignments you have that are actually coming up. And then work backwards. One of the biggest ways you can reduce friction in your life is working backwards. That means planning your week based off your assignments. Please remember, all parts of this journey, it is not going to be perfect. There's going to be parts of this journey where there's going to be tons of friction. There's going to be parts of this journey where you do have trouble balancing it all. But the one thing I want you to remember in all of that, one is to be patient, be forgiving, be gracious to yourself and all those different things. Give yourself mercy, all those different things. But the big piece I want you to remember is you can always come to one of us. And we'll always be here for you to be able to walk you through, be able to talk you through, and to help you be able to put the pieces together. If you find yourself sinking or falling beneath the water, stop by the counseling center. We're in BG07. Talk to one of your Cato coaches. All of us will be glad to help you. And most of all, remember this. You don't have to be perfect to be useful. You do not have to be perfect. Consistency. 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 It wins over perfection every single time.